His trial moved all the way till 2022. The legal team was not allowed into the court by the DSS. There's also a lawyer who came from the United States who was also doing some legal work for Nnamdi Kanu, who was also not allowed into the courtroom by the DSS, and that eventually caused some, level of chaos and led them to walk out. That I really don't think is necessary, and I'm not sure why we continue to. I wouldn't say politicize, but we continue to just create this level of higi-haga around Nnamdi Kanu's trial. It's really not necessary. They first of all would be banning cameras and journalists from the trial, or they are reducing the number of his legal team that gets into the courtroom. It is just unnecessary. I don't know what exactly the security threat is that the DSS thinks that they're trying to curtail. Is any of his legal team, is any member of his legal team a security threat to the trial? Are they in any way going to interrupt the trial? What exactly is the challenge with having every member of his legal team in court?
Interestingly, oftentimes I always think that we forget that we're in a democratic dispensation, and we seem to always forget, the tenets of democracy, however, and that calls for a lot of concern. Firstly, you would agree with me that it's a public hearing. It's not a secret hearing. And if it's a public hearing, everyone's got a right to walk in there. We can walk in there. You can walk in there. Anybody can get into that court and listen and watch. Now, another issue that was raised is the fact that they got clarification from the judge as to who and who. And then the clarification from the judge says, his visit is not just limited to her family members, lawyers, anyone can also visit. So it doesn't really make sense to me. I don't understand, and I'm quite worried. Like I said before, oftentimes we forget that we're in a democratic dispensation, and then we begin to behave contrary to it. So it's a public trial. It's not a secret trial. And because it's a public trial, everyone and anyone can actually go, including the fact that there's been some clarification. And that the essence of all of that is that people need to see that justice is served, that there's fair trial, that, Nnamdi Kanu is treated fairly. Now, it's not about Nnamdi Kanu. It could also be another person. So everyone needs to see that, yes, there's justice, and that there's fair trial and fair hearing. Apart from saying, okay, yes, there will be justice, but they need to see how he's treated. They need to see, and hear what's going on. So I am really, really, really worried, and I'm totally disappointed that every other time in a democratic, country, a country that practices democracy, and then we begin to exhibit some tenet of
democracy,
like we don't know. So I am the one who ordered the police or ordered the men who went to invade our house.
What did you order?
I'm just saying, nobody's taking, responsibility for that. Maybe I should take. But I don't control the police. So it's the same thing. They're working on orders, and they will do the biddings of those who actually, hired them or who they have to answer to.
I just don't think I'm sure they have their reasons why they feel these intimidating tactics, would be necessary.
Really?
I'm sure they must have, because it makes no sense. If there's going to be a court case at 9 a.m., they arrive at 6 a.m., and cordon off the place, and they, put DSS, officers everywhere, and then they start to pick and choose who can come into the court, which of his legal team can come into the court or not. It's just very, very unnecessary. I think we have, a video clip of one of the lawyers speaking and addressing the public right after what happened yesterday. Let's have you watch that. Apologies, of course, there was no audio. I think that would be sorted out, and we'll get to share that with you. But it's really just, want to continue to see, that there is some level of high-handedness by this away from this, type of activity concerning our judicial system and our courts. You would expect that, 20 years later, 26 years later, we would have moved way beyond having this type of attitude towards justice in our country, and it's very unnecessary, and that's just the way that I see it.
And so when we constantly say that the judiciary is the hope of the common man. I mean, the last hope. How do you ensure all of that? Because you also have the judiciary as an arm of government, which is there to ensure implementation of the law, that the law is implemented to the letter. Present highly. You see the DSS, you see the police, you see all sorts of security personnel all around there. And then you ask yourself, at times where we need security personnel and the places we need them to be deployed, we can't have them. Then we begin to hear, oh, we're understaffed. And then we don't have enough resources. We don't have personnel and all of that. I'm hoping that we understand. But, you know, these are some of the things that I begin to ask myself, what is the international community doing? Why they're not speaking? I don't like the look you're giving me.
Some other thing that I would mention is, you know, the time that it's all taken, you know, and of course the time that justice and every single court, you know, case takes in the country. A court case that really shouldn't go more than 3 months or 6 months, you know, if you have your facts and you have your prosecution presenting, it's just completely
And at
irrelevant.
the time, he probably would begin to have some, you know...
Let's get, you know, to share that clip with you. The lawyers to Nnamdi Kanu speaking about what happened yesterday.
We are locked outside, and we tried to get inside, but we found that the courtroom was locked from inside, and the judge simply didn't allow us to come inside because she had problem with the number of lawyers on Mazi Nnamdi Kanu's side, and I don't think that should have been a problem. Mazi Nnamdi Kanu has a right to counsel. The Constitution didn't say he has a right to only one counsel. It's a very complicated case, and he needs to have access to as many counsel. Joined the matter to 19th and 20th January next year, which we find to be a travesty of justice and a...
We're in court today. We're in court today for an application challenging the empty charge. When we are going to go to the court, they insisted that they can only allow 5 members of the legal team to be inside. Only 5. And we have at least a maximum of 8 persons along with us up there. I'm not talking about those that were denied access to the court premises. We are outside trying to resolve that issue. Because we can't continue this manner. We have people that came from all the way from Aba today. We have a person who is representing Igbo lawyers here. He was not allowed access to the court. We have people who are representing Ndi Otokiwu. We have people who are representing Ohanes and Igbo. They were not allowed access to the court today. So we insisted that the right thing must be done. After we have over 9 members of legal team representing the federal government today in court. They were in Jack Robinson. The matter has been adjourned to 19th and 20th of January. I've not seen such travesty. I've not seen such travesty. I've not seen travesty of justice. We are just told. We are told that the court invited our client and the DPP and the prosecutor to have a discussion with them. Even when we are not there. Just like what happened on 26th of July. On 26th of June 2021. When he was taken to court without reference to us. And he was tried on that day without us being in court. So the same thing repeatedly itself today. And it's unfortunately, we are winning the court.
An airline in Nigeria has suspended one of its staff. I remember we spoke about this yesterday or 2 days ago.
It probably feels
and you
like
said that you were embarrassed.
Yes.
That, you know, someone was shaming Nigerian airlines and, you know, the corruption in there. But an airline has suspended one of its staff for soliciting bribes from customers. And this, of course, also made headlines yesterday. And I read the story and I was excited, you know, because...
it feels like they're listening to us.
No. So I think what happens. So I think what happens in Nigeria is when you embarrass them, they take action. It's pretty much the same thing with when David who So when you embarrass them, and that's really what gets, you know, offices in Nigeria to work. When they're embarrassed, when there's public disgrace and they've put them, you know, put their shame, you know, for the whole world to see, then they immediately start to work. But they know, because they can't say, oh, let's cut 1 or 2 persons, and that's
well,
it.
so I'm thinking that it should not just be because we actually got that, you know, this has happened, but it shouldn't be a one-off, all right? We should be consistent with the energy. And this is what happened. So when people begin to see that you punish them for some things, some other people would sit up. So someone is going to sit up now and say, oh yes, we can continue in this you know, kind of behavior. Because culture, what is culture? It's a practice over time. When people do things over and over again, it becomes a culture, a pattern for them, and that's what it is. But we're saying that, hey, it's a good one, but this should not just be because we had that video, and it should not just be a one-off. We should be consistent with the energy.
They know what to do. if they really want to wipe out corruption in those places, in the airports, I'm sure they know what to do. Their supervisors, from top to bottom, all know what to do. Sadly, you can't even vouch that the supervisors aren't even part of the whole, system, that collects little bits of, bribe here and there. Even that one should stop.
No,
because
it's normally you just say, bros, fine, bros.
Nothing.
Alpha.
Not for you.
Right.
It's annoying.
We need some more.
It's annoying because I remember when I got my international passport, I paid about 43,000 or so, sometimes somewhere around that. But I went online and I saw that online, the passport office basically says it's about 17 or 13,000. But when you get to the immigration office in Enugu, it's 43,000 that they charge you. And I asked him eventually because I showed him, that this isn't what he says. And he says, because they need to buy diesel, they need to do this, need to do that, and that's why, it is that high. And so you can imagine how much money they are making amongst themselves in that office. And imagine how much money is passing through the airport state, that was flogged by her teacher. She put out the information on Facebook. And of course, like I said, when you embarrass people, they take action in Nigeria. You need to shame them first publicly, then they will take action. And so she put this on Facebook. And then the school eventually picked up the case, and it's starting to act. But it's I hope we have picked acting and saying what would happen if it was there. Three-year-old child that was flogged by a teacher in school for not being able to write.
We have lost our humanity, and that is really sad, really, because like I always say, this is a case in the educational sector, and I know that some people will wake up with the fact that we are Africans, and then you need to put a child straight. But times are changing, we are evolving, and there are other means to have, for instance, if that's the case, the child cannot write, have you ever wondered whether the child has a learning issue? Some people are slow to learn. Yeah. And all of that is not something wrong and you need to correct. There are other means of, meting punishment. And then you look at the age, right? That's a 3-year-old. What can you do to a 3-year-old? Let's assume human being. Because I don't know how the teacher involved. And the next question I ask myself is, do you have a child? That would be the next one. Because I don't know where that bitterness is coming from.
Sadly.
It's really sad.
Sadly, I don't think the idea of dyslexia, is it dyslexia or dyslexia? Dyslexia, I believe. Which is, of course, a learning disorder for kids. I don't think that exists in, the whole spectrum of Nigerian education system.
Not entirely.
I don't think it does.
No, not the case. But you would also find out that there are some people, whether it's dyslexia or not dyslexia. My point is, you will still find some people who cannot comprehend at the same level you do comprehend. And maybe
Absolutely.
We're not able to begin to put...
My point is that they exist. And of course, kids who also have dyslexia exist. What I'm saying is the Nigerian education system, I don't think it recognizes those aspects at all.
Very
and
correct.
so they would rather flog you into
Writing.
learning, than actually understand that not every child is the same, and some children have learning disorders, and that may not necessarily Palm Grove.
I hope that school doesn't exist.
I don't know if there's a school like that. But Mangrove British International Palm Grove Waterside School, and then you go there and you pay, eventually you're paying 3 million naira, a year for a little child.
For what? Because of how they treat the child.
Yeah, because
which is natural, which ought to come.
Exactly.
Because you're a human being, and that's a baby. And you need to understand the fact that, they are growing in stages. I mean, you have the fact that at a particular time they become very active, or they become, a certain way and all of that. When did you go to school again?
They take their trauma from home to school. So you get to school, and the fact that you and your husband fought that morning, you pour it on, the little kids in school. Wrong. And these are, this you would expect in a sane society is assault, and you should be arrested for it. You should be charged with assault for flogging that little child. But of course, in Nigeria, you would rather expect that the child's father will go to school and fight, and then they call police, and eventually, we get to settle it. We need to go anyway. Thanks for joining us and starting the day with us. We'll take a short break. When we come back, Off the Press kicks off with Ezekiel Iyaitok, who joins us this morning. Stay with us.
Wake up motherland to electrifying performances at the 2021 All-Africa Music Awards. Afrima from November 19th to the 21st, 2021 at Eco Hotels, Lagos, Nigeria.
Awards ceremony. Red carpets 4:30 p.m. Awards 7:30 p.m.
All at the Eco Hotels and Suites, Victoria Island, Lagos, Nigeria. For tickets and seat reservation, visit www.afrima.org. Brought to you by GoBed247.com.
Navadine ahead.
Address home. Afrima. Still we sing. For hope, for celebration.
Businesses in Africa can be very challenging. In Nigeria, it is particularly intimidating, and successful builders have learned how to navigate a hostile environment to unlock opportunities. But one major challenge businesses face is how
Seize it for upcoming artists to blow in Nigeria. For me, I wanted to change that culture. I didn't believe that until you see a white man or you see a foreigner in the kitchen before you can believe that.
Keep better. And my products are proudly made in Nigeria.
The Master this week is brought to you by the Nigerian Maritime Administration and Safety Agency. Statutorily mandated to ensure that there is regulation and promotion of matters affecting our waters. The Master bears responsibility for search and rescue, shipping development, and ship registration.
NIMASA This Week, the voice of maritime, showing on this channel.
Praise God, from whom all blessings flow. Welcome to your favorite program, The Moment of Truth, brought to you by the Citadel Global Community Church. Our God is a God of salvation, far above all principality and power and might and dominion, that regardless of what happens in this season, you will escape. Say to your neighbor, there is no peace for the wicked. The lazy man does not roast what he took in hunting, but diligence is a man's precious possession. Finally, my brethren, be strong in the Lord and in the power of his might.
Moment of Truth with Pastor Tunde Bakare, Sundays 7 p.m. on PlusTvAfrica.
Politics has helped shape the decision of the polity, from conspiracy theories to good old-fashioned comic politics.
These are the results of tomorrow's election. You have it already.
I am not hungry. If I need appointment, all I need to do is to start praising government.
Plus, politics will fill the polls of the country, from friends to frenemies, even strange bedfellows, to clones and stooges. We go beyond the rhetorics and the drama to
Welcome back to The Breakfast on PlusTvAfrica. Time for us to check out the front pages of the national dailies. We call it Off the Press. And this morning, we will be joined by Ezekiel Nyaitok to help us understand some of the headlines. I start off with the Daily Trust newspaper this morning, and let's check out the big stories on the daily. With 85% contribution, plan likely to Naira external loan request. Another caption on the Daily Trust newspaper, and away from that, you also have this one saying, 31 killed in Taraba and Katsina, Imo. More details will be available on the Daily Trust newspaper. And 2022, INEC budgets 1.3 billion naira for funerals and Christmas bonus. Others, that's what you find. That's quite huge. IPOP kills 3 butchers and 7 others in Imo State. That's also another one you find this morning. it's important that you pick up a copy if you so want to. But just before we move away, you also find APC Mum as Buhari, Gbajabiamila orders congratulates Soludo. That's the much we can take on the Daily Trust newspaper this morning.
All right, so the Daily Independent, inflation may shoot up as year winds down, says analyst. Kano's lawyers stage walkout as court adjourns trial. Also, South senators reject inclusion of other regions in NDDC. Nigeria is ready for business, says CBN governor. And also, 2011 to 2025 National Development Plan estimated at 348.7 trillion naira underway, says the FEC. Buhari PDP candidate Ozigbo and Ohaneze congratulate Soludo. Saruwiwa, 8 others deserve exoneration, not pardon, Pandev tells Buhari. Also, earned allowances sharing formula, stakeholders warn ASU, NASU, and SANU against strike. We can also see here on the Daily Independent, Senate ignores red flag, OK's Buhari's $16.2 billion and 1.02 billion euros loan request. Seek swift prosecution of money launderers, terrorist financiers, and smart challenges colleagues to account also for acquired wealth.
All right, let's check out the Nation newspaper this morning. The bold caption reads, "Governors can't back out of Paris Club debt," says Malami. That's the AGF, Attorney General. You also find another header saying, CBN plans single-digit loans for manufacturers. That's also a bold caption on the Nation newspaper, not quite bold. And you find Lagos, Ogun, Bauchi can't be NDDC member state. Buhari to French investors, Nigeria economy viable. Interesting. That's the much we can take on the Nation newspaper this morning.
All right, and finally on the Punch newspapers, Nigeria's debt stock hits 42.7 trillion. Senate OK's fresh $16 billion loan. Why we increase Buhari's loan request by $12 billion, says Senator. And more borrowings will put Nigeria in unfavorable conditions, experts are saying. APC governors lobby Malami to stop Buhari from signing electoral bill. And also, speculators lose billions as Naira appreciates, exchanges of 540 Naira to $1. Nigeria loses 396 billion Naira to Twitter ban, 24 days to 6-month anniversary. We can also find here, Igboho, how UK firm paid for Cotonou Hamburg flight ticket. Assembly orders security meeting as bandits killed 19 in Katsina and Kaduna. And pick any of the stories to start from, maybe from Nnamdi Kanu's trial. It says that the trial has been extended or been pushed all the way to January 19th and 20th after his lawyer staged a walkout yesterday. Quickly share your thoughts.
I think must be careful about what we are doing. That we are the segmentation of justice application for instance, as a Nigerian, what should I expect? What should I expect justice to give me? What am I saying is this? To what extent is an individual entitled to a defense in the way that justice is supposed to be? Point where you ought to use a particular system to use a particular stone to kill more than one bird. Right now, there's the agitation in the southeast. And you want to go out of your way to show that you are transparent, you have nothing to hide, that the guy actually does have a case. You want to be so almost too transparent because you want to make a point. Except, of course, there is a hidden agenda. So I think that the government really needs to step up and ask themselves what they really want to achieve. There's what's going on in the southeast, and coincidentally, I don't know if you noticed, it coincided with the execution of Ken Saro-Wiwa. And these are thousands. These are the sort of animations that you want to tell Nigeria that the law is for everybody. You want to use prejudice of the country to invest. And these guys, they don't think the way they do. They think in terms of what makes sense. The world has become a global. What my take is I go there to invest. We don't have people who are taking government. It's very sad because it affects all of us.
Yeah.
All right, let's look at the Daily Trust newspaper this morning. The federal government unveils 348.7 trillion national development plan. I mean, spanning from 1966, we've had several development plans to Vision 2020 and what have you. But mostly, you will find out that our development plans has been, highly dependent on external borrowings. Do you think that this would make any difference?
On two, we fail to understand the governance system that we run, which is that we are so much into our glory, and whoever comes back in, and then the people part of it, we can only a development plan. That development plan, I can assure you, a future and the funding system is very clearly seen by them. They will be the ones to make sure this works. So I think in terms of the funding dynamics and the philosophy behind the development plan, both of them for me are low. I saw them very low, so I don't see it going anywhere far.
All right. Oh, well, since you're already making $16 billion and an extra one.
Hey, John, think about it. Who is that man that is going to pay you to wash your clothes? Think about it. Sometimes we want to have our cake and eat it. Doesn't work that way. Those who want to serve are more often people that don't have the financial muscle. Look at what I just completed in another state. The Anambra people. Look at all the people that were lined up to a forensic test and an rectitude of moral rectitude and character that befits that office. So, man in office that will serve you, and there will be a difference. Instead, you are allowing these people to go and mortgage their souls to the devil and sell their properties and do everything to come and pay you so that they can come and serve you. Doesn't make sense. So for me, what the Senate president is doing is something that I think he will be unhappy when he leaves office. Have you noticed that there's a caveat to the borrowing? I just want to go and read that myself. And that is that we are giving you approval, but we want you to now, so we put it all together and then take what is called an informed decision. But you give a man an approval and say, give me the details thereafter. It's like pay, documentation to be done later. I think that Mr. Senate President should know that he was not elected to serve the president. He was elected to checkmate the president. That's one of his 3 core functions.
INEC, 1.3 billion naira for funeral, Christmas bonus, and what have you. My question is, do you think it's too much or it's fair?
I think you have the answer. Next question, please.
Food stuff is expensive these days.
Oh, really?
Go as much as possible to appease the people and take their minds away from being bought by politicians. So maybe they get...
You can't fail to talk about...
You go out, it's finished. And that's what it really says. But another point also is 1.3 billion, how much really would get to the INEC staff? We're in the same country where COVID-19 palliatives were stored in warehouses and never got to the people that they were meant for. So you can budget 1.3 billion, you can budget 3 billion, and and I'm sure that the INEC staff will very likely not get any of all these funds sent to them. But let's move on and talk about another very sad story. It's on Daily Trust. It says 31 people killed in 3 states. I think Taraba and Imo and some other states. Yes, Taraba, Katsina, and Imo. And yet
any premium is paid on life in Nigeria. I don't know how that will come in this system. I really don't. The Nigerian constitution says that the security and welfare of the people shall be the primary purpose of government. Primary purpose shall, security and welfare. To what extent of how to provide employment to the people, how to take the wind off the sail of these insurgents,
Instead, they are thinking in terms of, oh, the hardware to buy, oh, the Tucano jet to buy. If I had the money and I asked people honestly and sincerely, between buying one Tucano jet and using that same amount to provide a kind of very, very elaborate, the fire will slowly down and out. We have been saying before, let us start to bring into governance people that goes to blood. But when you say, I don't like to see blood and I want to be a surgeon, they just don't agree. What is government? Government is primarily service. But when you're bringing entrepreneurs into government, they're coming to make money. And all their decisions and all their mindsets and all their actions are going to be within that narrow perspective of how do I make money? Where can I make money? What do I do to get money? That's why, let me say this, maybe very important. I was privileged to host one Alhaji Kwankwaso on my birthday. And the reason was that I asked him a certain question. Is it true that for 8 years you were the governor of Kano State, you did not borrow a dime? He said yes. He didn't get it from international agencies. He didn't get it from local. He did not borrow 10 naira. The money you have can do the work if there are examples like this. That conversation should be now. All this issue of conversing on borrowing and lives and everything, we need to have an alternate platform where we start to think in terms of the security of the people, the welfare of the people, and the fit for purpose in terms of people that we bring to manage our resources.
All right, Mr. Ayatok, we're out of time. Thank you so much for joining us, as always, on Thursday mornings, and we enjoy your conversations and wish you a great day ahead. Thank you very much.
Many thanks.
All right. And, of course, that's where we wrap up today off the press. And we're now going to be sharing with you a little bit of what happened today in history. On the 11th of November, we're going back to the year 1992. And this happened after 17 years of campaigning. The church eventually voted to allow women to become priests. This happened once again in 1992. The Church of England narrowly voted to allow the ordination of women as priests, breaking the church's tradition of a male-only clergy, despite the opposition of about 1,000 clerics who threatened that they would resign. The General Synod, the main council of the church, voted to allow the ordination of women. All three houses of the church body approved the measure by the necessary 2/3 majority vote. It was, like I mentioned, the result of more than 17 years of campaigning and was expected to alienate many within the church. About 1,000 priests from the Church of England have, at that point also threatened to leave, but obviously didn't. If they approved.
I really don't know, but I still see them, dressed in this attire and what have you. But, to say like a priest, an actual priest, not like...
Well, this is for the Church of England, or maybe it doesn't cover the...
I'm thinking it could just, it cuts across, it might just cut across the entire Roman Catholic Church.
I've never actually seen a female priest.
But I have seen female who are dressed in priestly attire. You have different churches. I mean, sometimes you could see the Presbyterian, you see the Methodist church and all of that. And you still find some of those women dressed like priests, but they're actually not priests. And sometimes you find out that they're being called tent makers and what have you. But they're still doing the work of the Lord. I mean, not necessarily being a priest.
I've just never seen any
if you were a woman, I probably would suggest that you should think in that direction. But of course, you're not a woman, so we'll just let that slide.
Yeah.
I'm not thinking in that direction.
All right. We'll take a short break. When we come back, our first major conversation for today, we're talking standard operating procedure for search and rescue once again. And of course, it's really just to continue the conversation with respect to those who lost their lives in the Koyi building collapse. That comes up after the short break. Good morning.
Profile ID, Giggle.
Daddy, please help me.
Join Mamude Akuga at 9 p.m. every Friday evening on Plus TV Africa as he probes deep in search of solutions.
Inside the Niger Delta with Mamode Akuga, the authentic voice of Nigeria's oil-rich region.
It is engagement.
Tangible notification before they ban us.
It's one thing for people to be at your back and the heat of the moment, and another thing for them to still be with you when push comes to shove.
I will do everything to take Lagos out of the national grid.
I always say that being busy doesn't amount to productivity.
Internet technology has broken the barrier of connectivity.
We are putting in the right people in power. That way we can then demand for good governance.
Great to have you back on The Breakfast on Plus TV Africa. First major conversation for today takes us back to, going, deeper and, trying to understand better, with regards to what happened in Ikoyi not very long ago, a few days ago, actually. And of course, seeing the response from the Lagos state government. As of yesterday, there were on record 44 people confirmed dead. We're speaking this morning with Isaac Idoko, who is HSE manager for Industry Safe Management Company here in Lagos. Good morning, Mr. Idoko. Thanks for joining us.
Hello, good morning. Thanks for having me.
Great to have you on the program. The conversation really is to understand better how we could maybe have saved more lives at the Ikoyi disaster. We've spoken, of course, with other people who have, expressed their opinions with regards, the responsibility of the Lagos state government, to those people who were victims of that disaster. But of course, as Nigerians, we understand how we normally act, as long as the government has, said that all is well and,
Before I continue, I would like to say, to send my condolences and on behalf of my company to the families of those that have lost sincerely, like you rightly said, in the course of this rescue mission, like every other ones that have happened in the past, we've seen a lot of lapses, we've seen a lot of things that were never meant to be. And you can recall that in 2014, what should we have done differently, learning from the past and learning from history? First of all, one of the things that I've discovered in the course of this particular operation is lack of immediate response on the part of our emergency responders. Because when an incident of this magnitude happens, you have a very, very high chance of rescuing a lot of people alive when you venture into your duty immediately. And I would like to even use just one example of what happened in Miami recently, I think about 4 months ago, because where these people are underneath these bricks, these rubbles, and some of these vapors outside. So you see, when this is not done immediately, you now expose these people to more danger. So you expose them, they can easily die, and then the one you're just doing after a day, 2, 3 days is just anyone whose God says your time has not come. But on a normal and professional level, following standard operating procedure, immediately that happens. Because when that incident happened, I think for over 4 hours.
Okay, so you know that there are different types of emergency. Now, for the case of a building collapse, as is with us in Lagos, Nigeria, Ikoyi to be precise. What type of equipment is required? What kind of instruments do we need them to show up with? Because you've talked about the fact that they need to show up, but what kind of equipment do they need to show up with?
Good. Thank you so much for this question. Now, when there's a building collapse, depends on the type of building and the environment. But some of the equipment that you need to show up with on site includes the excavators, the cranes, because when you're trying to make a rescue operation, there are different types of operations. We have the shoring, which has to do with building the temporal steps in order for you to have easy access to the particular place. Then we have the lifting and moving, where in the case of, when you look at the mode of the building, breaking and breaching, because the excavators, all it just does is to just go in with the wrench and then try to pull down the rubbles, the concrete and all. And in the process, in fact, we have some that we have some recorded cases that the excavators disembarked some of the people, some of the victims. So what that means is the person may be alive, but at the collision with the excavators, realize that the person would no longer have any chance of surviving. So some of these equipment, because the kind of building, the kind of environment, and the kind of operation you would like to carry out depend, that would determine the type of equipment that you go on in with. But it's not at all time that you would only use the excavators, because like that Ikoyi zone, there are high chances that if you do lifting and moving using cranes and some of these heavy machines, it would have been easier to rescue some of these victims.
Do you think that we could have worked faster, with regards to Ikoyi?
That keeps happening is the issue of employees' competence. All right. We keep saying that when you leave your employees without having proper and requisite skills and the knowledge about certain operations, when it plays out, maybe your family may actually be, or friends, close friends may be the victim of your inefficiencies. We should have responded faster. And also, even at that, at the time we responded, a lot of things happened, a lot of negative things happened. Equipment. As a matter of fact, I am a field professional, and I looked at their confidence level will be low and their marginal productivity to labor will be low. Because even in as much as we are trying to rescue other people, you don't also want to be a victim. So we should have acted leaving more people are coming. So we should have acted faster and better to save more lives.
That should have been done, being that...
Understand the staff on duty, the emergency responders on duty to easily wear out while working. So they are understood to do more and not just recruiting anybody. They need those that have passion for rescue. They need those that have passion to devote themselves. Competent people that are meant to do the right job are not to be found.
But you mentioned
just giving the little they can.
But you mentioned that before the emergency at that point in time, let's not forget that it's an emergency, and then you begin to look for who's got the right training.
Yes, one thing in HSA is you cannot try to solve one problem and create the other, because when you look at the hierarchy, right, of safety, when you are in any environment, the first thing you need to do is to eliminate hazard. All right, to eliminate hazard. Then, if total elimination, the process of rescue,